Hello, I'm Miss Prestwich and I'm here to talk you through how you can support us as a parent or carer, but also a couple of other bits like parent pay, our feedback policy at SMSJ, and the summer learning requirement as well. So the first way that you can really support us as a parent or carer is by setting in place really clear routines and enforcing them really consistently. Things like laying out uniform and ensuring your child packs their school bag the night before, waking your child up at the same time every day, giving them breakfast at the same time every day, or sending them to school so they can have breakfast as part of our homework club. Having a set bedtime that's strictly adhered to, and I'll talk a little bit more about sleep in a second. And also talking really proactively with your child about their learning, which I'll expand on a little bit shortly as well. So with regards to sleep, ensuring your child gets plenty of sleep is crucially important. The average 11-year-old requires 9.5 hours of sleep per night, according to the NHS, and some children will just naturally require more than that. Something that has a huge impact on sleep quality is blue light, and this is the sort of light that's given out by phone screens, TV screens. And so it's recommended by the NHS that people have an hour away from the screen before they go to sleep. So encouraging your child to read a book or to play a game, have a conversation, will really, really help them to get really valuable, high quality sleep before they can learn the next day. Another way that you can really support us as a parent or carer is to sign up to class charts. In September, both yourself and your child will be provided with a code which will link to your account and a student account. This can be both on a website or on a phone app and will allow you to keep track of the positive points that your child accrues and also any negative consequence points that your child accrues as well. It will allow you to see patterns in their behaviour. It might be that since Christmas there's been a real improvement and you'll be able to see that reflected in the graphs on there. And it will also notify you if your child has an after-school reflection as a result of receiving too many negative points. Something that would be a huge support to us is you tying these positive and negative points to rewards and consequences at home. For example, fantastic, look at the number that you achieved this week, let's make a big cake or get a treat dessert, for example. Or if they've had a really negative day, saying, okay, well, no phone this evening then. It really helps to show your child that we're all on the same side here and want the best from them in terms of their education. Another way that you can really support us is to talk really proactively with your child about their learning, which I touched upon earlier. Questions such as asking them about what they've learnt this week, what they might need to learn in a specific subject to keep on progressing, what's the next topic they're about to do, setting them a quiz. Their learning journal contains knowledge organisers for each of their subjects, and that content you could use to quiz them, or asking them to create a quiz for you maybe and get them to mark your answers so that you're showing that you're participating in their learning. This constant review is hugely important in terms of learning. This graph is Ebbinghouse's forgetting curve. It was developed quite a while ago, but this research underpins what we try and do at school. It shows that if you follow the mouse, when we first learn something, we obviously have 100% retention of it. However, within a matter of days, if we do not review it, that retention drops right down to under 2/3 of what we knew originally. And it's only by reviewing this, we go back up to that 100% retention of that memory again. We build this into our lessons. So if they learned, for example, the parts of the atom in one lesson, the next lesson, they might review that as part of the first task before going on to the next thing. But you doing this at home will obviously improve that. So you might ask them what they've learned today, get them to teach you or a younger sibling. And then if they're not sure about something, encouraging them to look in their school books, remind themselves. All of those are going to be review points and are going to help them to remember more of the content and as a result, do better in their learning. Another huge support for us would be to monitor your child's phone and social media really, really rigorously. Having been a head of year now for a number of years, unfortunately, social media is the cause of many problems and students have falling outs over it, and unfortunately they're brought into school. there are obviously many apps that your children will have. Maybe their mobile phones are new to them, and so they'll be looking forward to getting as well. Um, but just be really careful and really aware of what your child is placing on social media. Instagram, for example, the pictures there are owned by Instagram and Facebook. So if your child posts something, they don't have the rights to it. Telenym is an anonymous polling app. So it was originally developed for company bosses, so that they could gather anonymous feedback from their employees. However, in the hands of students or children, unfortunately, a child might post a question and then people can anonymously say unkind things to them or unkind responses to that question. House Party, obviously hugely taken off, and you're probably familiar with it from the beginning of lockdown, but it enables friends of friends to join a conversation without others giving their consent to do that. So it might be that people that your child doesn't know are able to just join a conversation. Kik is less well known. It's a messaging app, but it only requires an email address as authentication. So people might be pretending to be different ages or pretending to be different people from who they actually are. And TikTok, hugely popular. Your child probably has tried to do some of the TikTok dances and things. However, as soon as they post videos on them there, the privacy requirements are quite low. And so it's very difficult to keep those to keep those videos private. There are lots of things that you can do as a parent or carer. Talk to your child about social media, talk really actively with them about the brilliant things about it and the connectedness that it can give us, but also the concerns and your concerns about it. On an iPhone, for example, in screen time, you can go in there and you can set limits on different apps. So it might be that you give them access to these things to improve their responsibility with them, but also say, okay, you can have access to them, but only between 4 and 6 on school nights while we're all about. And so we can just monitor you a little bit more carefully when you're using those apps. So it's all about having a really open conversation with your child and teaching them to be really responsible when using their phone. You can always flag anything inappropriate that you see to us as well, and we'll support you in dealing with that with your child. If you want any extra information about this, ChildNet is a really useful source, but it's just worth noting that WhatsApp has an age limit of 16. Facebook, Snapchat, Twitter, Instagram, Musical.ly, Skype, users have to be 13 or more. YouTube, to have an account, a child has to be 13 or more. So it's just really worth bearing in mind that these age limits do exist for a reason, and that sometimes 11-year-old children aren't necessarily emotionally mature enough to see some of the content that's on those sites or to be able to use them responsibly. Another huge way that you can support us and your child as a parent or carer is to ensure that they have extracurricular interests. We're really lucky in this local area that there's a huge number of football clubs and other sports clubs. There's drama, dance clubs, even in this school at the weekends. There's a huge water sports centre quite close to us. There are numerous opportunities for music lessons, art schools and things as well. But it's important that your child has interests out of school. They do something with their time when they're not here. So really encouraging them to do these things that are not absolutely all not at a cost is really important. And we'll set them in really good stead when it comes to later on if they're thinking of applying to further education, universities and things as well. Another huge way that you can support us is to ensure that your child has the correct school uniform and that it's named really clearly. You can see the standard of uniform that we expect from those students just there on the left. You can see that they're all wearing the school blazer. A couple of them have chosen to wear the school jumper. That's not compulsory for them to wear every day, but many do. They are all wearing their school tie, although one student is wearing a prefect tie in there, which we'll provide by the school if they're elected as one of our Wisdom, Service or Hope ambassadors. They have plain white shirts on, they're wearing their house badges, and the boys have black uniform trousers and the girls either have a black skirt that comes just above the knee or black trousers as well. It's worth noting that they're all wearing leather or leather look shoes, so none of their shoes are canvas. And all of this uniform that's branded with the school crest is available from School Wear of Hendon, which is really, really close to the school. Shoe-wise, it's an area that some parents unfortunately don't get quite right. We require students to wear leather look or leather shoes to school. Many of our students choose to wear shoes on the left, so kickers are obviously quite popular, but quite an expensive choice. But other shoes that have a strap to anchor them to the feet, maybe they're Velcro, maybe they're laces, as long as they are smart school shoes, that's absolutely fine. Some of the shoes that unfortunately we don't accept are on the right. So there are some kickers that are billed as school shoes. They're in the school shoe section of the shoe shop, but they're actually more trainer-like, and we don't accept those. We don't accept ballet flats that don't have something to anchor them to the feet a little bit more because they might fall off. We don't accept shoes that are more platform or boots or shoes with coloured trims either. So just please do take care when going to these shoe shops, and the shoes that are available on the shelves there and billed as school shoes won't necessarily fit with our uniform policy. And a couple of other bits of uniform. Hair must be neat and tidy and can only be dyed natural colours. Headscarves must be plain black, white or bottle green. Same for hairbands and other hair accessories. We don't allow any makeup, any acrylic nails or any jewellery apart from a small pair of studs in the ears. No glitters, no shiny bits in them at all. There's examples of those on the right. And we allow one small necklace with a religious symbol under the school shirt. Coats must be black or navy blue and plain, and bags must be black or navy blue and plain. Any trousers that are worn can't be legging or jeggings. They have to be tailored, more suit-like trousers. Another way that you can really support us is to ensure that your child attends school as much as possible. Obviously, if they are vomiting profusely, we just do not want them. Please keep them at home. However, if they've unfortunately caught the latest cold that's going around, if they are complaining of a little bit of tummy ache or a bit of a headache or just feeling a bit washy on one particular day, please do send them to us. Attendance has a huge correlation with student progress and student attainment. We obviously want our students to do the absolute best that they can do. 90% attendance sounds really, really good, but actually in reality, what it means is that a student is missing nearly 19 days of school, well over 100 lessons. And actually it means that they've missed one day of school every 2 weeks the entire year. So as soon as their attendance falls below 96%, we will start to be in contact with you and talk with you about ways that you can increase your child's attendance. So one of the questions you might be wondering is how you and how your child are going to know how well they're doing when they're at SMSJ. And that all comes from our feedback policy. So our school does do some very traditional things. We do mark books. It's one of the ways we know how students are getting on. Your students will have assessments at various points in various lessons throughout the year, and we'll obviously give them really detailed feedback on them. There's already a Year 7 Parents' Evening in the calendar for the beginning of December, and you'll also receive a detailed report about your child and their progress at the end of each school term. But feedback is so much more than that. And so there's loads of work we do in class so that your child has a really good understanding of how they need to improve their work. So it might be that a teacher verbally gives them a target, or they might provide a model answer to the whole class. The teacher might be walking around as the children are working and live marking work, looking at question 1, correcting it so that they can have another go and use those corrections in question 2. We'll use questioning techniques. We might reteach something if it's shown that a few students in the class don't understand it. And we'll have dialogue with you. So if your child is struggling, the teacher will reach out and get into contact with you. And similarly, if they're absolutely excelling, we'll reach out and get in contact with you and let you know that they're doing brilliantly. So feedback comes in many forms. If you obviously have concerns about your child, please do get in touch with us through their PAM teacher, and their PAM teacher will direct you to the correct teacher to take your question to. Another thing that you might be quite familiar with is parent pay. Parent pay is used in many of our feeder primary schools, but it means that our school has the ability to be completely cashless. So we will ask you to sign up to parent pay in the first week of term, and you will be able to pay for school trips through this. You'll be able to pay for all of their school dinners as well. Before sign up, they will still be able to have school dinners. We will just, when the first top up is made, that money will just be deducted from that. Students will be given a PIN code, and when they've chosen their lunch or dinner, they will pop their PIN code in, and it will just deduct the money for that meal from their total amount on their account. If you have any queries or questions about parent pay, or your account's not working properly, if you email the school office, they will put you in touch with the finance department, and they'll be able to help you with that. Last but not least, summer work. So we are going to set and send out to you in the final week of term summer work for the students. They must complete in this summer work section A. Section A is a summer project. It's asking the students to get out of the house, do some interesting things over the summer, obviously within the guidelines of the COVID-19 crisis. But to take photos, see things, do things, maybe do a little art project or a gardening project, and put that all together to bring into school. And that will really help their PAM teacher get to know them in September. We'll also award prizes for the best ones as well. Section B contains a piece of maths work and a piece of English work. These pieces will not be explicitly marked, but we will use them in the first week that the students are back in school. So this summer work booklet will need to be in their bag, so that in their first maths lesson, they can have it out and use that piece of work in that lesson, and the same for English as well. And then finally, section C, this is a more optional section. So they have to do 2 pieces of work, but they have more choice about which pieces of work they choose. So they might choose to do a piece of food technology and cook a meal and take a photo of it. They might choose to do a piece of work on ocean plastic for science. So it gives them much more variety and allows them to explore their own interests within the secondary curriculum. Again, these won't be explicitly marked, but it will enable your child to show their new subject teacher that piece of work, and to have a conversation with them about it and start to develop that relationship with them. Obviously, if they wish to do all of the work in there, they are more than welcome to, and we would love to have a conversation with them about it when they bring that booklet back into us. And finally, a few key dates for the rest of this term and the autumn term. In the final week of term, this term, we are going to send out letters with information about your child's PAM teacher. At the moment, you're aware of the group that they're in, but not who the teacher leading that group will be. So that information will be coming to you. In the beginning of September, there'll be a couple of inset days. And then on Friday the 4th, we're going to welcome all of Year 7 in, hopefully, pending restrictions, for our Year 7 induction day. Other students will return slightly later in September. We're going to assess their reading mid-September so that we can support those students that struggle to increase their reading ages. And we'll be inviting you in, hopefully, at the end of September for the Year 7 setting in evening, where we give you additional information, as I'm sure the questions that you're asking now will be very different to the questions that you have when your students have been with us for 3-4 weeks at the school. As I mentioned earlier, Year 7 consultation evening or parents' evening is already in the calendar for the 10th of December as well. Thank you so much for watching this. If you have any further questions, the letter that was sent out at the beginning of July contains details to the website that we've set up. Clicking the pink button in the bottom right-hand corner of that will take you to a new post. You'll be able to post your questions so that we can answer it. And I look forward to meeting you all in September. All the best.